Hello everyone, welcome back to D on the Couch. Today's topic is going to be black faces in white spaces. With me today is Dr. Felicity Ford and Sasha Davina, a graduate from Exeter University. Her dissertation was about racism in black British theatre and its links to transatlantic slave trade and the slave trade in southern states of America. Right. Indeed. So I will open up this discussion with a little bit of history. In 1857, a US Supreme Court Justice, Roger Tanner, declared that black people had no rights that any white person was bound to respect. This effectively put black people at the bottom of the racial hierarchy, and this is a sentiment that has been shared the world over. Despite the civil rights movement, despite the various anti-discrimination laws that have been passed to promote equality, this warped way of thinking is so ingrained that we find ourselves in 2020 still fighting the same fights that our forefathers fought. Dr. Ford, what comes to your mind when you hear the phrase Black Lives Matter? Are you at all threatened by it? And why are so many white people threatened by this?
I'm not threatened by the phrase Black Lives Matter. I support it and I believe in it. And I think if people genuinely believe that we're all equal and we should have equality, then Black Lives Matter is there to redress the balance that at the moment in so many ways, in terms of infrastructure, legality, day-to-day interactions, microaggressions, black people continually receive the message that you matter less. And I think Black Lives Matter is about recognising that and saying we have to get rid of that disparity. So to me, the phrase all lives matter, what that's there to do is to shut down that conversation and to say like there's this worry that by saying Black Lives Matter, we're prioritising black lives over white lives, and that's not the case at all. It's just about saying things are not equal, and if once we recognise all those disparities and change them, then things will be more equal. But we don't get there by talking about how white people are important, because that over prioritisation of white lives is what has led to a situation where we have to insist on no, black lives matter, and we have to stop doing all these things that create this inequality.
Absolutely, I agree. So let us talk about rural England. When we watch shows like Country Life, there's just so much underrepresentation of black people. Personally, I can't say that I've ever seen a black person or a black family on a show like that. Why do you think we're so underrepresented?
I think there's like multiple reasons for it. So one is like when you think about at school when you're a little kid and you get a book that's about like life on the farm, like the farmer who's in that book will invariably be a white farmer, and the people who are shown in those spaces. So there's a degree of like you can't be it until you see it, I think. So there's like underrepresentation in children's books, in films, in literature, and then you've also got like the issue that like if you go into rural spaces, a lot of the large houses and the halls and the kind of fancy properties that are there belong to the aristocracy, the British aristocracy, and many of the ruling classes in this country are still sitting on the benefits of ancestral wealth generated through the transatlantic slave trade. So like that immediately makes it not a welcoming place to be if you're in that situation of like, well, maybe your ancestors enslaved my ancestors. So I think that's part of it. And I became aware of this because of this amazing photographer, Ingrid Pollard, and she did this amazing series called Pastoral Interludes. And maybe we could, I don't know how easy it is with the post-production editing to put some of these in, but she, with this Pastoral Interlude series, she just talks about the kind of she says here, nothing about the scene is really natural. It's as manufactured and deliberate as the assumptions and stereotypes about black people. And this was her interrogation of like, why are images of black people in urban spaces so familiar, but images of black people in rural spaces are so unfamiliar? And so she says, it's as if the black experiences only lived within an urban environment. I thought I liked the Lake District, where I wandered lonely as a black face in a sea of white. A visit to the countryside is always accompanied by a feeling of unease, dread. And she just kind of goes through and she has these amazing images, feeling I don't belong, walks through leafy glades with a baseball bat by my side. A lot of what made England great is founded on the blood of slavery, the sweat of working people, and industrial revolution without the Atlantic Triangle. Searching for seashells, waves lap my Wellington boots, carrying lost souls of brothers and sisters released over the ship's side. And then she says, death is the bottom line. The owners of these fields, these trees and sheep, want me off their green and pleasant land. No trespass, they want me dead, a slow death through eyes that slide away from me. So she's speaking to that darkness of what that history of the enslaved ancestors, and then this like extraordinary aristocratic wealth, and how the countryside is somehow the place for her, anyway, in this series of photos where that tension comes to the fore.
Okay. She does such amazing work. I mean, her imagery evokes such emotion. It almost transports you there. It's like you are there, right on the hills. Sasha, what can you tell us about your experiences as a black person in white spaces?
So when people ask me about my experience, I usually talk, rather than kind of racism, I like to focus on microaggressions, because those are things that I have experienced, more frequently. And so my favourite analogy is the dog whistle analogy. So if someone blows a dog whistle, you won't hear it. But that doesn't mean that the whistle is broken. It means that you weren't the intended target, because every dog in the vicinity will have its ears pricked up. And that is the case with microaggressions. It's a small comment that's kind of said in passing that maybe a non-black person might not see the issue with, but you feel it. You feel it, and you feel it hard, you feel it proper. And that can present itself in many ways. So I've got some examples. So when you're going for an interview, you're told to dress smart, natural makeup, natural nails, and professional hair. But what do they mean by professional hair? Because to us that might be braids or twists or an afro, natural hair. But we're constantly told that that doesn't look professional, that doesn't look clean. You look like you smell like weed and patchouli oil and all these ridiculous things. And there was a time when, it was about 20 odd years ago, I was in year 1, and one of my favourite teachers, in meaning nothing by it, I had taken my hair out of the hairband and just had it out, because tying your hair up, it hurts the front of your head, especially if you have long hair or thick hair. And he said to me, Sasha, put your hair away. And I was like, 4 or 5, so I didn't know how to tie it up myself. So he said, oh, come here, I'll do it for you. And said, oh, hold on, let me play with it for a moment. And he kind of wiggled my hair about till it was facing in all different directions, and said in front of the whole class, Sasha's a wild thing. So he was just making, just a light-hearted passing comment in relation to what we've just been doing. And I didn't feel put out by it or anything at the time. But in hindsight, when I think about it, it's like, oh, that was
not okay.
That was not okay. And then there's also the whole idea of people who have never experienced racism or never seen racism feeling that they have the right to decide when racism's over. So I've had conversations where people go like, oh, but it's 2020, racism doesn't exist anymore. Or when I was at uni, this place is so diverse, there's no racism here. And this is all like middle class, white people that come from money, who some of them had never met a non-white person until they'd gone to Exeter for uni. And there was, me being from London, as far as I'm concerned, no black people in Exeter at uni. But they thought it was so diverse and it was amazing to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's almost like invalidating my lived experience as a black woman. Like, well, I think racism's over, so your experiences and what you're telling me you experienced on your way to this class,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't matter to me because I've not seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another, again, not outright racism, but it is a microaggression.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I had to learn from that is picking and choosing battles. Otherwise you will fight with everyone all day long. You'll be exhausted and you'll have no time to do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more like if you're gonna fight like this particular thing, you've got to take into consideration, am I safe to do this now? Am I putting my safety or someone else's safety at risk?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a point to this conversation? Like, for example, are they just looking for an argument, or do they genuinely don't know and, do they want to learn something from me? So, let me just get to my notes here. So what I would say is to don't put yourself at risk if you don't have to. Don't engage with trolls. And if you need to remove yourself from a situation or cut people off, like, that's completely fine because you don't owe anything to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, but like in closing, my experiences of being a black face in white spaces was that racism has not gone anywhere. Unfortunately, it's just kind of taken on a new form, and it manifests differently. So rather than people yelling at you at the streets or throwing things or not having access to the same services as everyone else, you will have access to the same services, but people might maybe treat you a little bit differently, or they'll look at you some type of way, or, oh wow, I thought you're so well spoken, I didn't expect you to look like that, or things like that. And really what we can do for now is to we can't fix racism yet, like it's here now, we can't do anything about that, but what we can control is our reactions to it. And I think the more discussions that are had, maybe, hopefully, spaces like somewhere like Exeter University or like a Russell Group or Oxbridge will become more acceptable for black faces.
Yeah. Okay, good point. I'm not sure I agree when you say we can't do anything about it. We can. We may not be able to solve it yet, but we can certainly talk about it, have honest conversations, we can educate, we can definitely do something and see where we go with it. Because my view is doing nothing is not an option unless, like you said, you're putting yourself or somebody else in danger. But, like you said, if trolls are just there to troll. They're not really interested in learning. They're not interested in having an honest, open discussion.
It's entertainment.
It's just entertainment for them.
Yeah.
So that's a case where I would choose my battle.
Yeah.
But there are people who genuinely don't know, and there are people who are willing to learn. So with people like that, you can have conversations with them.